Thank you, Mr. McGurk. The first question I was going to ask you related to something that happened last summer. There were militant camps and training grounds spotted in western Iraq, so we could see this brewing. And yesterday, we heard the CIA director note before Congress that there are camps inside of both Iraq and Syria that are, in his words, used by Al-Qaeda to develop capabilities that are applicable both in theater as well as beyond. So you noted that the Iraqi government could spot these camps, but did not have the ability to target effectively, leaving safe havens just miles from populated areas, in your words. If these Al-Qaeda camps present a direct threat to our interests and the Iraqis can't deal with it, then why weren't we doing more against these camps? You know, how would this gap that the Iraqi capabilities obviously can't meet be closed? How could you effectively move on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me kind of walk through the last 4 or 5 months. Really, late last summer, the Iraqis spotted some of these camps, and they tried to target them. They flew Bell 104 helicopters out, 407 helicopters out there. The helicopters were shot up by PKC machine guns. They tried to send the Army out there. The Army was IED'd on the roads, which were heavily booby-trapped. So it was pretty clear that despite a very strong Iraqi security force capability, they were not able to target camps in these remote areas, and their special forces also could not operate effectively in those areas. And that is when we began to accelerate some of our foreign military assistance programs and also information sharing to get a better intelligence picture. So two notable developments over recent months. First, the Iraqis have begun very effective with the Hellfire missile strikes through their Caravan aircrafts, and we are helping them in the find, fix, and finish mission in which they're undertaking. And second, we believe, as we've had many discussions with this committee, many good discussions, that Apache helicopter platforms are really a critical platform for denying safe haven in these areas over the long term. And I want to thank this committee for helping us with that sale, which was recently approved. But this won't be immediate. It won't be until later this year that the first leased helicopters get into the country and are operational. But that is really a long-term solution to this problem.
The other question I was going to ask you was, in your testimony, you called suicide bombers a key data point we track and noted that these suicide bombers operating in Iraq are, in fact, foreign fighters that have come in. Where are these foreign fighters coming from? We've seen reports that close to 1,000 have come from Europe, some from the U.S. I was going to ask you, how do you assess the threat to U.S. personnel, not only that threat to personnel and our interests in the region, but also here in the United States?
Mr. Chairman, the foreign fighters in Syria are coming from all over the world. This is a problem we faced in the years 2006 to 2008 when foreign fighters were coming into Syria and also making their way into Iraq through what was then the Al-Qaeda in Iraq network. They're coming mainly from the region. But we do assess from our best intelligence assessments that the suicide bombers are foreign fighters. Right now, they do not pose a direct threat to us or our personnel, but they pose a direct threat to the stability of Iraq. The suicide bombers, and again, about 5 to 10 a month over 2011 and 2012, now about 30 to 40 a month, it has a pernicious effect on the political discourse in the country. Car bombs, the Iraqis have been able to protect against car bombs. You don't see mass casualty car bomb attacks like you used to see. There's still a lot of car bombs, but casualties are lower. It's the suicide bombers that are able to get into funerals, mosques, populated areas and cause mass casualties, which has just a devastating effect on the country. So it's a very serious problem and a regional problem.
And the last question I'll ask in my remaining moments, you were just in Baghdad meeting with Iraqi officials, and you state that you detected for the first time acknowledgement that government of Iraq missteps may have made the problem worse. And as I noted in my statement, this is not the feeling that Ranking Member Engel and I received when we raised this issue with the President of Iraq in our meeting. So that was a few months ago. I am somewhat encouraged by this, but how encouraged should we be? Because our concern has long been that this lack of reconciliation is compounding the problem seriously?
I have found, frankly, Mr. Chairman, an attitude among the Iraqis that was similar to the tactics that we used in the early part of the war, that the security problem was simply a security problem and not a problem that was fused with politics and economics. And we had a series of conversations over the course of last year as the ISIL attacks increased, in which Iraqis saw this mainly as a security problem. All I can say is that I've been there twice this month since the entry of ISIL into Fallujah and Ramadi, and I have heard from across the board, from the Prime Minister on down, that unless you enlist local Sunnis in those areas, you will never defeat and isolate ISIL. And we have seen that now manifested in a commitment. The Iraqi cabinet has passed a number of resolutions saying tribal fighters will be given full benefits of the state. And most significantly, Prime Minister Maliki has made a commitment that tribal fighters who oust ISIL from these areas will be incorporated into the formal security services of the state, the police and the Army. That did not happen with the awakening fighters that we worked with in 2006 to 2008. So that is a very significant commitment. We now need to stay on the Iraqis to make sure they follow through.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Engel.